So Congress has to do a lot, right? They have a lot of enumerated responsibilities. This means that they have to know a lot, right? If you have to regulate interstate commerce, you have to know something about interstate commerce. If you have to raise taxes, you have to understand taxes. So this means that Congress members have to gather a lot of information. And there's so much more than just those, right? Think about during the pandemic, how much Congress stepped in that crisis to help keep the economy going, to help implement plans that might keep businesses afloat, to do all sorts of different things. And of course, to fund research into coming up with vaccines and other treatments. So Congress did all this, but Congress members needed to understand it, which means there are information costs. Remember, when we use the term cost, we don't necessarily mean money, right? They don't have to pay for this information, but they have to gather it somehow. They need to know it, and that costs something, right? Mental energy, time to learn about it. So we consider these information costs, the cost of gathering information. And this can be really high because Congress members aren't often experts in what they're writing laws about. So during the pandemic, when all these laws were coming out, helping enhance research funding for medical research, helping respond to a public health crisis, only 18 people serving in Congress out of the 535 members are doctors. There were only 3 scientists and 9 engineers. So every time we worry about the interstate highway system, this kind of public engineering thing, we only have 9 engineers, and not all of them are that type of engineer anyway. Congress does an awful lot to regulate farming, in part because stuff you make on one farm will often be sold in another state, and the stuff you even make on that farm, right? The crops you grow, you've probably bought seeds from another state. So there's all sorts of interstate commerce going on when we talk about agriculture. Congress does a lot about agriculture, but there are only 27 farmers, ranchers, cattle farm owners. There's only 1 vintner, someone who makes wine, 1 orchard owner, and 1 forester. So all this agricultural stuff, land clearing of forests, growing trees or vines or crops of other types, or ranching, right? Cattle ranching is another type of farming. 27 out of 535 members actually understand this from I've done it in my life standpoint. 6 restaurateurs, 2 coffee shop owners, a wine store owner, and a brew pub owner. During the pandemic, that Paycheck Protection Act and different laws to help stabilize restaurants when the shutdowns were happening and no one was eating out, only 10 people had any experience as restaurant or store owners, or I should say food store owners. Congress does a lot about international relations, right? If only because of interstate commerce and international commerce and war powers, right? The power to raise an army and declare war. Only 4 out of the 535 members have served as ambassadors. The House is responsible for initiating any raises in our taxes. There's only 6 CPAs in the House. Many of you at Baruch probably are studying finance, so you know how complicated all this stuff is. Tax law is so complex, and only 6 people have actually in the House have actually studied it enough to become CPAs, and 1 in the Senate. But remember, tax bills, unlike regular bills, have to originate in the House. So these are just some of the many types of professions that we could account for, and why information costs are just so high, because these members are experts in only one thing at most, and they have, so many other things to deal with. So it becomes really tough to get anything done. That's one reason they have staffers, right? Because they can hire staffers who are experts in other areas. But it still means they're going to be really dependent on different things like the committee structure so that they only have to specialize in one area. So now they're not gathering information from everything. For everything, they're just gathering information on things that their committee is going to deal with. And they can trust other members of other committees that those other committee members will be doing the same thing on their committee. So if I serve on the agriculture committee, I can trust that someone on the commerce committee knows about that information and trust whatever bill comes out of that committee. So I don't have to learn about that. Right? So that's one of the big ways that we can reduce information costs, by dividing up jurisdiction into different committees. And we're going to look more at committees in another little video.